Yes, I'm here with you today, and I have a special guest. We are going to have a conversation about just dropping some growth information here on building a massive wholesale company and some other cool things this guy's doing. Jamal, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm great. I'm having a fantastic day. Can't complain, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good, absolutely, and especially since I get to talk to smart people like you. So,
Oh,
so and I mean that because, like I was mentioning before we did this show here, I met you in where was it in
Dallas
Houston,
or
Texas,
Houston,
actually, yeah,
right? Houston, that whole scaling.
hill scaling, and I was doing the math. We're having this conversation. I was doing the math backwards in my head. And I was like, man, this guy is crushing it. So, I know you're going to share a lot of value here today. So let's talk about who you are and how you got started in the business, and then we'll get into details on how the audience can get some knowledge from you.
Sweet. So my name is Jamil Damji. I am the president and one of the co-founders of KeyGlee. For those of your audience that don't know what KeyGlee is a scaled up wholesale operation. We're located in Phoenix, Arizona. We're currently in 12 markets. So we do virtual wholesaling as well as wholesale in our backyard. On average, we do anywhere between 75 to 85, 90 houses a month. In blended, that's in our market as well as the ones that we're in virtually. We primarily are a disposition company. So what that means is if you are a wholesaler in your neck of the woods and you have trouble selling your deal, we're a group that you can bring your deal to that could help you sell your deal. And typically what we're able to do for wholesalers is sell their deals for a lot more money than they could ever get. Not to give us too much of a plug, but I just did a podcast with Brent Daniels. We were discussing a deal that we did with him. And he sent a deal out that we actually bought from Brent. He found out from his disposition guy that Keighley was the buyer. And he said, well, we've left money on the table if Keighley's buying the deal. But he said we were the highest offer he had gotten over 3 days. He couldn't see how we'd be able to do better. We bought it and made an additional $34,000 on our sale. And that was mind blowing to him. It's when he realized the power of a dispositions list like we build. And that's our goal. Our goal is to help new wholesalers maximize their returns as well as be involved in the deals whenever and wherever we possibly can.
Yeah, it's cool and that's smart. It's one of those things where you're sitting there and you're listening to the conversation. You're like, I've had so many opportunities to have thought of this, and you beat me to it. It's genius. I have to admit, it's genius. I mean, why not? Collectively service the masses, out there and be able to make a buck off it, and to be able to do it the way you do it, which is, to have your proprietary way of finding buyers and to build a massively good list. So, how did you get started? Before we get in more in depth into Keighley stuff, how did you get started? Like, why real estate investing?
So I got started on accident, right? I'm the accidental wholesaler. In all honesty, my first deal happened by trying to solve a problem. I wasn't involved in real estate. I was in the media business, building websites. In fact, every website that we sold, this is 2002. Every website that I sold for $600 actually cost me $700 to make. So I was in a failing business, losing money every time I made a sale. And I overheard a conversation my business partner was having with his dad about real estate. And I heard them discuss a problem they were having locating these building lots. And I took some action from that conversation. I found out from them what they would pay for one of those lots. And the next day when I was out walking my dog, I happened by one of these specific types of properties that they were looking for. It was a for rent by owner. I actually was familiar with the house because I had tried to rent the house myself 3 months prior, and the property was still for rent. So I knew the landlord was having trouble renting the house. I saw that it was still available. I called the landlord and asked, since you're having trouble renting this property, would you be open to selling it? And her answer was for the right price. I asked, what would that be? She said $350. And I had already learned from my old business partner and his father that they would pay $400 for one of those lots. And so I had to solve the $50,000 question of my life at the time, which was how to get my hands on that 50 grand. And there was no real estate education at that time. Carlton Sheets was selling some form of education on, late night infomercials, but it wasn't even in my sphere of influence. I had no desire, no interest in real estate. I was really a hustler trying to make money. And what I ended up doing in that situation was calling in the phone book to real estate attorneys, explaining to them what my problem was. And I finally got in touch with one attorney who helped me. His name is David Steed. I won't forget him. And he described to me the process of the double escrow, and which in Canada, where I did this deal, was called a skip transfer. And he described the process of a skip transfer to me, the two contracts and or assignee, the different prices on each contract, and then told me to bring those two contracts to him, and he'd help me convey the deal, and I would make the money, and it happened. So I stumbled into my first wholesale deal, and I never looked back.
Wow, that's crazy. So what's like, that was what year? What year? How long ago?
2002.
2002. So you started about the same time I did. I started in 2003. So, okay.
Cool.
So
yeah,
Carlton Sheets, we didn't have YouTube. We didn't have Facebook.
Yeah.
I remember knocking on doors on pre-foreclosures. I had to print off Microsoft Streets and Maps and then flip through the pages as I drove the addresses. It was
right.
It's nuts. So I get it. Okay. So how did the crash affect you then? Because I went through it and I lost everything. Tell me like, what was your journey through the market crash? Were you ready to poise to take advantage? What did that look like?
So great question. I wasn't ready for it at all. In fact, what had happened prior to it is I got cocky, and we made a lot of money wholesaling. I graduated from wholesaling building lots to wholesaling apartment buildings. Because again, in Canada, we don't have access to information like you do in the States here, where you can see what houses sell for, right? Even the public can't pull comps in Canada. It's the weirdest thing. And so I had to rely on firsthand information from developers or builders as to what they would pay for their raw materials. And I learned what developers would pay for these condo buildings, these apartment buildings that they would then convert into condominiums after renovating. And I'd make about $100,000 every time I'd wholesale one of those buildings. And I had stacked quite a bit of funds. But what I did is I took that money and I convinced my sister, my father, and my mom that we should take all the funds that we have, we should double down and buy some apartment buildings and renovate them ourselves and make the full money like these developers driving the Rolls Royces were. And that was in 2007. And so what happened is every dime that we made, I'd put down on down payments. I had actually asked my father and mother to co-sign on those construction loans for me. So at the end of that, not only had I made myself homeless in the crash, but I also made my parents homeless. And so I'll never forget this, because I was, I have this clear memory of what this day felt like. But we moved from these beautiful homes that we were living in to my mother, my father, my sister, me, and our 150-pound dog, my niece, and our cat moved into a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment building in the worst neighborhood in town. And that's where we ended up. And it was devastating, but we stuck together. And the pivot that I went through from that point forward was, I had always been involved in, I was a writer. I wrote in university. I loved comedy. And so I convinced my family to, since real estate was over for us, I convinced my family to follow me to Los Angeles and help me follow my dreams of becoming a comedian. And so that's where I went. The pivot I took was to Hollywood. I spent some time doing stand-up, sketch comedy, and I was making some money there. And that's how I actually got back into real estate, is because I needed a place to put the funds that I was making as an entertainer in somewhere. And I saw Phoenix, because I was in LA. Phoenix was the closest metropolitan city that had a really low barrier to entry. And so I could buy these condo units in Phoenix, Arizona at the time. This is around 2010, 2011, for like $25,000. And these units could rent out for $850. So that's how I made my way back into real estate. It was, again, clearly just a way to, park my money, to arbitrage my life, my rent in LA, because life is so expensive in California. And I stumbled back into wholesaling again through a random Craigslist post. There was a couple of deals I had put under contract that I wasn't able to close because I'd run out of funds and money hadn't been coming in as quickly as I wanted. I put these 2 deals on Craigslist, and a wholesaler that is still active in Phoenix reached out to me, and he bought both of those deals for me. And I made $18,000 so fast, and that it sparked my interest again in real estate, in flipping. And this gentleman, his name is Tim Wynn, he was very gracious. He invited me out to Phoenix to hang out with him and his partner for a week. And they showed me around town, and they showed me their projects, and they showed me their deals, and they introduced me to a title company. And, you know, I always belonged in real estate. I had a vacation in comedy, and I'm back. So I packed up my bags in 2012 and moved to Phoenix, and I haven't looked back.
Yeah, that's a cool story. I mean, it runs very similar to mine. It took a little longer to get back in, but I totally get it. So one of the things I'll say about Phoenix that I've noticed, and yeah, I may be part of the guilty parties in my market, but you guys really, I mean, it's like there's a community of investors, and a lot of you guys are competition in one way or the other, but you guys are all still friends, and you don't see that in many markets.
Right.
Which is really, really cool. So I'll give props to that for sure. I mean, I've been out to see Steve. I've met you in person. I've met Pace. I've met, you know, I've talked to Brent. I've not met him in person. You guys are all just really cool and helpful. And I will say that that's the testament to, I think, the community there, which is really cool.
It's great. I think the beauty of that is that your competitors can help you a lot if you can find ways to play nice in the sandbox with each other, right?
Right.
That's the goal. Is you have to put aside the deal that you lost to this guy, or put aside, you know, any feelings of scarcity, any ideas that one person's gain is another's loss. And when you can step outside of that mindset, what unfolds is a real beautiful way of interacting with people. And I have found my best friends and my competitors. I have found my closest collaborators and my competitors, and I wouldn't have it any other way now. Now that I know that this is how it can be, I'm hooked.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. So, okay, so you got back into wholesaling. You're doing your thing. What gave birth to the Keighley idea? Like, where did Keighley come from? Did you happen to fall on the fact that you could build some great buyers lists? Did you meet somebody? I mean, how'd that come about?
So Keighley came about because of my 2 partners, Josiah and Hunter. So at the time in 2000, now this would be 2013, end of 2013, 2014, I was a real talented acquisitions person, right? So it's funny because everyone says I'm the king of dispo, but my actual history, my knowledge base comes from being really damn good at acquisitions. And so I was here operating as a lone wolf in Phoenix, doing deals. I was doing anywhere between 10 and 15 deals a month by myself. People knew me. I tried to keep a pretty mysterious, I guess, persona. Brent and I were talking about it the other day as well, and he reminded me of a thing that I used to do. What I was doing is I tell everybody, hey, I can do business with you, but I don't want you to ever tell anyone my name, and I want you to keep me anonymous. And it was that level of mysteriousness, I think, that had people keep coming back to me and bringing me deals. And so I was really talented at getting referrals, really talented at acquiring houses, but I needed help selling these deals, right? So I had access to cash, I could close, but then what do I do after I close? I need to sell this house so I can exit and take some profit. And I was in a partnership. Well, I wouldn't call it a partnership. I was working with a group locally that was helping me sell some of my deals. And unfortunately, at the time, the group that I was working with had other priorities. You know, there was the individual was a little older than I and liked the vacation more than I did. And so I was having a hard time selling all of my deals. And so I meet these 2 young kids, Josiah and Hunter, at a sandwich packing party. You can't make this stuff up, man. I'm packing peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for homeless people at this party. And I meet these 2 kids at this sandwich packing party. And they're just they're really energetic, they're really sweet, and they're asking me questions about, how do you do so many deals? And I asked them, what are you guys doing? They said, well, we're really good at selling houses, but our trouble is bringing deals in. And I said, well, I kind of have a situation right now where I could use some help selling some deals. So I'll reach out and maybe we could do some business. And a few days later, I did that. I reached out. I sent a couple houses to Josiah and Hunter, and within a half an hour, they sold the house. It had been like nothing I'd ever seen before. And that intrigued me. And the deal closed. The earnest money came in, the deal closed. And so I gave them another. And then I gave them another. And then I gave them another. And their capacity to sell these houses was beyond anything I'd seen. And we did that for a year. I basically tested them out, kept working with them loosely. And for a full year, these guys would perform at a level that I hadn't seen done. They were getting me prices for my properties that I was never able to get on my own. And so we had a conversation where we sat down and said, how do we bring what we can each bring to the table and make one company out of it? And that's how KeyGlee was born. It was tough for me, Don, because Josiah at the time was 23 and Hunter was 19. I'm like 41, right?
I'm 45. I'm 46 actually. So,
so you and I we've been there, right? We're a little bit older. We're from a different generation, and so it took a lot for me to swallow my ego to say that I'm going to learn something from these two kids. But I did, I absolutely did. These guys brought a level of energy. They brought to the table what I didn't have. And, KeyGlee doesn't happen without them.
That's cool. I mean, again, that's, being open to opportunities and putting ego aside to do something. I mean, I think the mistake a lot of us make in our businesses is we let our ego get in the way of the opportunities before us. Or look, I'll be the first one to say that I'm highly competitive in my market. I'm highly competitive. I will make friends with people, but the second you rub me the wrong way, I'm going to drop a bomb on you. So, that's probably not, looking again at what you guys have accomplished over there, it's probably not 100% the right way to operate. And so I think that's a good lesson for people listening to this, getting into this business. The relationships are huge. Relationships go a long way. And KeyGlee being a testament to that. So what's some of the secrets you'd be willing to share? Somebody doesn't have KeyGlee in their market, and KeyGlee's not coming into their market anytime soon, and they're struggling with dispositions. What's some of the secrets you can share that would help somebody get better at getting rid of deals that maybe they normally couldn't get rid of, or maybe get more money out of their deals?
Love it. Love that you asked that, and I'm happy to share. So something that I talk about occasionally is finding and building better buyer avatars, right? So what do I mean by that? Well, in the wholesale game, our bread and butter buyer is a fix and flip client, right? Someone that's going to buy the house, fix it, flip it. They're always the bread and butter. But the problem with fix and flip buyers is that they're seasonal. They stop buying when houses take longer to sell. And when the seasons change and Christmas and Thanksgiving comes along, it gets dead. And you can't operate a business where your livelihood fluctuates with that kind of volatility. It's very difficult to get consistency that way. And so what we at KeyGlee have done really well is being able to reach outside of that avatar to find different people. So I'll give you a tip, and your viewers a tip here that will allow them to find different types of buyers. So we look at industries with high net worth individuals, right? So let's call them doctors, lawyers, engineers. These industries have prominent publications that people within the industry read, right? So doctors typically will read the Journal of Applied Psychology. They'll read the American Medical Association Journal. So what we do is we create social profiles, social media profiles that will like those publications, and then we'll also like luxury items like Rolex, Lamborghini, Ferrari. And when you see that you've got a mutual match from prominent publications within an industry and luxury items, there's a high likelihood that that individual is in the medical industry. Let's say that's an individual that would be a doctor. So what we'll do then is we'll send them an outreach message and say, my name is such and such from KeyGlee. We specialize in finding discounted properties for individuals looking for equity and cash flow. Would you be interested in purchasing a house at somewhere between 80 cents on the dollar, 80 to 85 cents on the dollar? And 9 times out of 10 down, the answer to that question is yes. And so they respond yes. We ask them to opt into our buyers list. The next day we make an outreach phone call where we introduce ourselves and start building the relationship. So what we're doing is we're going outside the box for our buyers. We're bringing buyers to the table that typically wholesalers don't bring to the table. We're trained as wholesalers to just look for cash transactions, look for hard money closes, and we all try to recycle the same buyers over and over and over again. The problem with that is as we train more wholesalers, as this business profile grows, everyone's going to be marketing to the same buyers, and those buyers get fatigued. They get packed full of inventory, and they're out of the business. So how do we keep consistency? How do we keep our capacity to sell open? Is by going outside of that path. And so that's one amazing tip that I could give you and share with your audience for them to be able to go out and find different buyer avatars for them to close their deals with.
That's cool. I mean, that's great information. That's outside the box thinking, which I don't think there's enough of in this industry. You know, a lot of people will just, you know, I don't know how many times we have been doing dispositions and we'll run up against our buyers list and my guy will come and say, I can only get, you know, 10 grand for that. And then I'll reach out to somebody that I met at a mastermind or at a meetup, and I'll basically, you know, send the property over to them, and we end up getting like 30 for the same property because it's an outside the box buyer that's not part of our pool. But you guys have taken it to a whole nother level. So I think the point is that a lot of us are leaving money on the table by not looking for these other opportunities, which is great advice. You know, I'm glad you shared it. So
absolutely. You could double your business by not doing anything different, but finding different buyers.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's that outside the box, finding somebody that wants a rental, right? Because even if we're buying flippers, because I'm a rehabber, even if we're buying in season, we're not going to pay the most. We have to hedge our bet, right? And make sure we make money. So, but a doctor who's not in the game, who just wants a rental, is probably going to pay more. I mean, in the more likelihood, they're going to pay more for that deal. You're going to make a higher profit. Also,
they're super happy with it too, right? Because they don't have access to houses 80 cents on the dollar, 85 cents on the dollar. Doesn't happen to them. So they're always given investment opportunities that suck. And the bank gives them 3 to 5% interest if they're lucky, right? So giving them an opportunity to get capital appreciation, to be backed by real estate in their investment, and also receive cash flow, it's like, you know, it's like Christmas every day for them.
Right. So let me ask you this. So when we're selling to our typical list of landlord buyers and rehabbers, most of them are, you know, open to the fact that the properties may need some work before it's going to be rent ready, or of course you hit the ARV. When you're going outside the box to some of these, you know, doctors or whatever, are they more gun shy of projects that need extra help? Or do you have to give them something that's rent ready, or have you found that they're pretty open to putting some work into these things?
They're super open to cosmetic rehabs, right? So when it's a, you know, $20, $25 per square foot kind of update, they're okay with that. If it's beyond less than that, they're okay with it. If it's a big rehab, I tend to say that those buyers shy away from that. But those specific properties that are really, really bad, like the super junkers that we get under contract deep, I tend to think that you find buyers for that property by actually getting out into the neighborhood and seeing what construction projects are actually going on in that subdivision. And then what we do is we just pull the car over, walk up into the house, talk to the contractors, get the information for their boss, call their boss, and sell him the house.
Yeah, we do something very similar. That's one of the ways I find contractors as well. So, I mean, there's a lot of things you can do by just stopping at a property when there's something going on. So
absolutely.
Definitely. Yeah,
absolutely.
Very cool. So what are some of the growing pains? I don't know if you've been asked this before, but you've grown a massive operation fairly quickly. What are some of the growing pains, some of the suck points, I like to call them, that you've ran into in the process of doing that?
So, you know, I've been fortunate that there hasn't been a lot of pain in it, right? We have very little turnover because we set the foundation for this growth in a very positive place. We don't hire people at KeyGlee ever thinking that we're going to let them go. In fact, we tend to think that if you get a job at Keighley, it's like getting a government job. You really, really have to want to get fired to leave. And even then you won't get fired, you'll quit. Right. So,
Okay.
For us, I'd like to say that our culture has kept a lot of the growing pains away, but of course, overhead, right? I mean, we've got 50 people on staff now. These aren't 1099 employees. These are W-2 employees, right? And so overhead is always one that we have to deal with. It's expensive to run an operation like this, but thankfully we do enough volume where it's never been an issue where, you know, we've lost money or haven't been able to make payroll. We've been really blessed, Don, but I'd say personally for me, not business, but personally for me, I've had to come outside of my shell a little bit. I was a real I'm an extrovert, Don, but I was really happy in my bubble. I was happy working from home. You know, my office was a guest house. I saw my wife every day. I saw my, kids all the time. I was more present in my family life than I am today. Just, and that sucks to say, but it's the truth. I was around more. Now I'm not. And so some of the growing pains for me have been really trying to make sure that the time that I'm spending with my family is quality time, that I'm present for it, right, that I can turn my mind off from the phone when I get home and actually just connect with my family, be able to have a conversation or dinner with my wife without needing to check my text messages. It's personal stuff like that where I think my biggest challenges and growth has happened, is being able to take the success, take the growth, remain humble, but still present and remain a family man and a good husband and dad, right? That's been for me, I'd say, the part where I've had to put in the most work.
And I'm glad you shared that because that's starting to become a theme of a lot of the podcasts I'm doing. In fact, I just did one earlier today where that was kind of the theme of it. People sometimes they make mistakes and they're not present for their family. That opens the door to so much regret later on, but it also opens the door to problems in the family now. And we all get into this, right? We all get into this to build a better life for ourselves and for our family. And we can't ignore how important that is. So I'm glad that that's kind of a topic here. And you being aware of that obviously puts you ahead of the game, ahead of most people who aren't aware of making sure they're tuning out. And we all know this business is one where we got Facebook and Instagram and text messages and emails and deals and employee issues and friends and everything coming at us 100 miles an hour that it's important to stop. I had a mentor years ago who's an 80-year-old man, a developer, and he told me, he's like, my phone's off from 6 to 8 every night. That's off because that's my family time. That's
Love
something
it.
I still need to put into practice. I need to put something like that into practice, but it's cool that that's something that you recognize needs to be, part of your life.
100%. It's the full priority, right? If I woke up tomorrow and I had to choose between my family and Keighley's gone, and so knowing that I have to live that, right? And so I have to honor them every single day, so that they can feel that from me too.
Right. So second guest in a row today, people, if you've been watching this thing live, if you're listening on iTunes and you heard the other show, this is the second guest in a row that has pointed out, and I just want to take a moment to point that out, that there's more important things in this world than money. Money's great. It buys us a lot of opportunities, but the precious moments we'll never get back. I mean, we got to be engaged in those. So I'm glad we hit that. Okay. So can I ask you this? I don't know if that's one you've been hit with or not, but you have a great operation right now that's obviously, you're being fed by people, around your markets that you're in. What happens if the faucet gets turned off? Like what happens if the market changes? I'll be the first one to say in asking that question that I do not think we're going to have a 2008 again in our lifetime.
Right.
I believe we'll have different market shifts, but a 2008 to me is a once in a lifetime thing. I lived through it. I lost everything. I can say that. But what if, what's the protection on the downside? Does Keighley have a pivot point if the faucet got turned off?
Absolutely. We didn't get this far in the plan without the parachute, right? And so the way we see it is this: everybody that works at Keighley has a license. That's how we operate, right? We don't have any unlicensed people on the floor, and so if we came to a point where access to deals just dried up and everything halted, we would turn into a brokerage. All of our staff would become 1099 agents, and we'd be able to pivot and operate that way. We'd probably get into the short sale REO game because all of our people are trained and licensed and they're ready to go, and they understand how to get in front of opportunities fast. And so I see that we'd be very successful at that. So we'd be able to move into that direction very quickly. The other thing that we've done really well is we are hoarding cash. We haven't been taking out any loans. We don't have any debt. We don't hold any inventory. All we hold is dollars. And so should an unfortunate situation come about in the industry again, we'll be in a good position to wait a year and strike with bags and bags and bags of loot.
Love it. Yeah. That's that. I mean, I'm a hoarder as well. I get it, but that comes, that comes from somebody who's been through it before. It's
PTSD, bro. PTSD. I mean, we share it. We share it. Us graybeards, we know what's going on. So
absolutely.
Yep.
Look, I always tell the story about Taco Bell and taking my family to Taco Bell, my card not clearing in the middle of a busy Taco Bell with my wife and kids, and my kid, we're leaving. He tugs on my hand and says, "Why doesn't the mean guy give us our food?" Type of thing. And I went through some serious stuff. So literally when we talk about PTSD, it gives me chills because every time to this day, even though I know there's money on the card, when I hand my card to somebody, I get that PTSD feeling that's not going to clear. So just throw that out there, the PTSD part. I mean, it's true. I mean, when you've been through it, it's like, but we're also, I want the audience to hear this too, because you may think we're being ultra conservative when we're hoarding cash, we're not buying Lamborghinis, we're not doing crazy stuff. But if and when that market turns, we're going to be in such a good position to make so much more money than those of you who are over leveraged and spending it as fast as it comes in. You guys are going to be gone. Like it's going to clear the playing field, and we're just going to sit there and pick up the pieces and get paid. And that's what I'm ready for. Yeah.
Even my personal residence is owned in cash. I have one car note. And so I would have, I believe it's a $1,300 payment to make on one car. I have a few cars. I own two of them outright. One of them has a note on it. So the only bill I'd have would be one car, which I'd happily walk away from if I had to. Right. So I've put myself in a spot that I think even if I had to drive an Uber, I'd have a really beautiful house and really beautiful car, and I'd drive Uber if I had to. You know what I mean? It's fun. I'm good.
Fantastic. Smart. Love it. Love it. So, okay, cool. So any advice you give somebody just starting out in the business today? That's something I always ask. Like, what would your newbie advice be?
So I would say focus on a couple of different avenues of lead generation, right? For me, I gained a lot of success by being a relationship guy. I think that there's something to be said about getting after deals, the proactive way, whether it be text or cold calling or whatever marketing channel that you like. You've got to do a little bit of that, but you've also got to do a little bit of the relationship building, because having deals come to you rather than you having to go after them is a really, really fun part of this business. It makes your work less, right? And so I'd say focus on multiple marketing channels. I would also say it's not always going to be a cakewalk, right? It's not all fun and games. It's definitely going to be some struggle. You will have hard days in this business, but it's the most rewarding entrepreneurial endeavor I've ever encountered. I see more beautiful spirits in wholesaling than I have in any other entrepreneur industry. And so I say, just keep at it and reach out to mentors that have that spirit and heart. If you watch, Brent Daniels, and you're a mentor, Brent, myself, Pace, we give look at you do a podcast for free. No one's paying you.
Right.
This isn't Flip Talk's not, no one's cutting down a check for this, guys.
Right.
Gravitate to mentors who are out there giving you value because they want to pay it forward, because they care, right? Learn from people who have teaching in their spirit, not in their wallet, right? Look, it's okay to charge for coaching. It's okay to charge for mentoring, but we have to give stuff away. We have to be able to be there for the community. We've got to pay forward what we've been given, right? And so I'd say gravitate towards that energy. The biggest pitfall you can make in this business is writing a $30,000 check to a charlatan that's not going to give you anything for it, right? So just be careful. Be really, really careful. Judge the energy of the people that you're doing business with. See what they're willing to share with you before you cut a check.
Yeah, absolutely. So 100% great advice. Perfect. All right. Well, tell everybody how to get a hold of you if they want to reach out to you and know more about what you have going on. And
so I'm on, my favorite way to reach me is on Instagram. My Instagram handle is @JDAMJI, @JDamji. I give away free tips there all the time. Don, if you don't mind, I'd love to share with your audience that Keighley's franchising. So near the end of March, we're currently under federal approval. So we're just waiting for federal approval for our franchise to come out. But hopefully in the beginning of in the beginning of May, we'll be able to sell a franchise. So reach out to us, reach out to me if you want details about that. It's going to be amazing. We're going to be nationwide. If you're in a market where Keighley operates currently, we're in 12 markets, and you need some help selling a deal, reach out. We're happy to help. We can help you comp houses. We can give you buy prices. We can tell you where you need to be on a deal before you go to your appointment. That's valuable information. Mm-hmm. It's huge for you to be able to walk in with some confidence to those seller appointments. Lean on us. We're here to help. And if you ever just need a pep talk, I'm also here for that.
Fantastic. Well, I may have to get a pep talk from you someday then. So you, okay. So something that I never do, and I love that you did it, is give out your Instagram. So I'm going to throw mine out there at The Real Don Costa. Make sure you follow me. I know that that's like the new hotness right now is the Instagram thing. Right. So, and of course, if you're getting value from the show, reach out to Jamal or myself, and we can definitely help you get where you need to go in this business. So the fliptalk.com is where you can find more information about what we have going on. The Inner Circle Elite, go to beinthisroom.com if you're interested in being part of a mastermind. If you're getting value from the show, rate and review. Reviews go a long way. They do mean a lot. I do actually read them. And send me an email at donfliptalk.com and just say hello. And until I talk to you again, folks, have a wonderful day. Thank you for being with me, man. And I appreciate it.
Appreciate you, man.